Okay. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, it's 6:02, and we'll start our Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, call to order, December 6th, 2022. And appreciate y'all being here. We sure do appreciate you taking the time to be here. It really helps us when we have questions and helps for better communication. So thank you for being here. Dave, is there anybody that's not on the agenda that would like to speak at this time?
I've not received anything, no.
Okay, we'll move right on to item number 1 on the agenda, consideration and possible action on November 1st, 2022 regular meeting minutes.
Members of the commission, one note to make is you guys have an amended set of minutes. Our deputy city secretary, one of the things that Brittany had pointed out was she had transposed Miriam and Brittany's comments, not being able to identify you guys. So
I saw that, and I was like, oh,
she's changed that, so the copy in front of you there shows the correct.
Makes a little bit
All
more
right,
sense.
So if you're okay with the minutes, it would be approved as amended.
Okay, so Miriam, you can help us out there because since you were there.
Well, I read it and I was like, that's not what I said. Brittany said that. I didn't say that. Yeah.
Have you had time to?
No, I just seen the old minutes. I haven't seen these
all right.
new minutes.
I think as far as this, on that subject, I noticed a couple little things that when we were talking about the Montgomery Steakhouse, the boundaries and the dumpster and all that. I think that's where there might have been a mix-up on the names, because you were asking about the foliage. So that was one area.
Yeah, where the property line is, taking the trees out and then putting the
Right.
garbage enclosure
Yeah.
up against that, and if there was going to take away from
Okay, and then
the other side.
yeah. And then
Yeah, pretty
I
much
thought I
the
made a note here.
Yeah.
whole discussion.
Oh, the very first item or the second item, it was on the fence, the proposed fence over there in the neighborhood of Cedar Break Park. There was an issue of both the height of the fence and the consistency, and I think that's where the names were switched on that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're okay we're clear on those name changes?
Yes.
Yeah, appreciate it. Just, it's good to get it right. No confusion. So we need a motion. If you have, well, take your time. If anybody needs to look through the new version. And yeah, it may be best, Mary, if you're the one, Mary, that makes the motion.
Right, I know.
I wasn't there, so I can't.
I know.
I want to make
Reading going, yeah.
Yeah, take your time. There's a lot of pages there.
Jeff, while we're waiting on just for a few minutes, I want to let the commission know there's a parade meeting that's happening
Yes.
tonight in this little room. So if you guys notice some folks who are coming in, following in down the side and heading into the conference.
Because this is the only way through that can't come back. Yeah, thank you, Dave. And I'm sorry, you mentioned that. I should have mentioned it. They've got the signage up, electronic signs up above the parking.
I move to approve the amended meetings from November 1st, 2022.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. The motion passes. Item number 2 on the agenda, consideration and possible action on proposed canopy signage for the Simmons Bank ATM located at 14340 Liberty Street in the Historic Preservation District.
Members of the commission, you will recall this item from the past two meetings. The first, the signage was denied at a proposed 30-inch height. They revised it down to 12 inches at the last meeting. The vote was a tie because you guys only had 4 folks in attendance. And so the city attorney advised that it comes back for action at the next meeting. We have the proposal is, for clarity, is still the same as it was at the November meeting. Still the same details, same heights. And you guys had some discussion regarding on-premise, off-premise signage. My own feeling is that it is on-premise. There's an ATM there. It advertises an ATM. It's advertises what can be done on the site. I'm happy to answer any questions or point out any clarifications that you guys may have.
Did city council talk about it, or is it just before us?
No, they wouldn't need to look at a sign.
If we decline it, what happens?
They have
Nothing.
the opportunity to appeal to the Board of Adjustments, which is also City Council, so City Council would get involved. If it was denied, they certainly don't have to appeal it, but they have the right to appeal it.
I wasn't there in the last conversation, but reading through the minutes, I have to agree with Miriam and Bill in that conversation. I do not like the view of it, and as I drive through downtown right now, honestly, it blends in well. It's not an eyesore. It really doesn't draw too much attention to itself, but I can still tell what's there. I don't see a need for it, at least not in such bright lettering. So if we were to make a motion right now, mine would be to decline it.
I second that.
Motion in a second.
I'd like to have a discussion.
We discussed it a long time last meeting, like a consumer.
I just want to say, I appreciate Bill diving into the ordinance, and I completely understood his point when we went through all that. And Dave, thank you. I'm sorry, you couldn't be there because you're on vacation, but since then you have clarified was the terminology point of sale. So the ordinance, from what I'm hearing and from what Dave is telling us, the ordinance really wouldn't pertain to this situation because that's when you have a sign on a different property. But here we're...
Something to consider. The historic preservation guidelines are really the point that you guys are looking at. So that, obviously gives you a lot of latitude in, kind of what you would like to see. And again, kind of, I think the commission has explained, kind of some of the aspects of it. It's, again, it's your decision.
Sure. Yes. And I understand both sides. But what I think is important that we look at, there's two parts to this, and one is that we clarify the ordinance, that in this case, this is what's called a point of sale. The proposed sign is, it's on premise. It's an on-premise sign. So we did clear up that. It was a good question, and we've cleared it up. I do have to remind the commission that in October, when we first looked at this, we said to the bank, if you come back with something with smaller letters, and if you can do a historic theme to it, great. So my only point is they have come back to us, and if you look at the detail, the letters are only 9.5 inches. The logo on the short part, the ATM, those are 10 inches, or 9 inches. And then on the long Simmons Bank, the long read those are actually been shrunk way down, where the logo is, the logo is 10 inches, but the letters are actually, the logo is 9 inches and the letters are 5.5 inches.
Yeah.
So I just want to make my point that we've been doing signage. I've been here for 6 years. We've done a lot of signage in every business. We've never really had a complaint about any business wants to have something up to 6, 7, 8 foot tall so you can see it from a reasonable distance, not from 149, not from 105, but just as you're walking around. And I think just to defend the bank, I feel like because it's a bank, they really cannot change that logo. It can't be made to look more historic. And if we're going to, as I said before, if we're going to promote these festivals and have a lot of people coming from out of town, I think it's very important that they be able to, as they're walking around, they can look up and see where the ATM is. If I'm from out of town and don't know anybody, the last thing I'm going to do is ask somebody, where do I go to get my cash? You know, in this day, and I'm not going to go asking somebody, where is it? I want to be able to look up and see where it is, and I want to do it on my own. I'm not going to ask a stranger, where's your ATM? So my point is, just like any other business, you know, this country's, what, 250 years old. We've been hanging shingles on the front of a business for over 200 years. I mean, this is nothing more than another sign to show where your business is. This is where you come to go to the ATM. And I've walked it from all directions, east, west, north, south, and I can't see that's until I get right upon it. I don't know what it is. So that's my only point. I just feel like any other business, they're entitled to have a way to see it from all east, west, south, all directions. And well, the last thing I'll say is, we already said if you come back with smaller letters, then it's okay, except for if you can do something historic, that'd be great. So I don't think it fares well for us to now change midstream and say, well, we already said, they shrunk the letters way down, much smaller. And to me, it's just another normal sign. It's just like I'm standing on 105 looking down the street. Some people have a personal problem with those signs. I don't. I mean, this is a little Texas town. This isn't Aspen, Colorado, or Breckenridge, Colorado, where you got all these perfect little signs that are all, perfect little world. This is just an average town here. So don't people expect to see a sign for an ATM to know where to go? And again, if we deny this, what's the bank going to say? They're going to say, well, you already told us if we shrink it down, it's okay. And I just think in the real world, that's what it is. I don't have a problem with it.
On the downtown, right across from where the food trucks are sitting, there's a little signage booth, right?
Little kiosk.
Kiosk, right?
Right.
Is there any?
The H&B, I believe, used to maintain that, or whichever downtown business.
Is there anything on there?
There's small, there used to be business signs. I didn't really understand who.
Yeah.
Again, I think it was the H&BA's, at the time.
I'm just wondering if that, because a lot of people look at that as a legend, I guess you would call that a kiosk to go where we're, see where we're going or where you need to go. And I think throughout town, I think right there on 105, right there, we used to call it four corners right there, but it has some signage there too that points what's going downtown or whatever. But I have to say, I've never seen anything listed for banking. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
No, there hasn't. It could be done just like in a mall or anywhere else.
Right, but I'm just wondering.
But it helps you to know this is what they have. But you still have to look up and say, okay, there it is. Yeah. Just like there's Urban Coffee. There's, if you're a stranger in town, if you don't know what's what, that little map, that what you're talking about would be at least acknowledge that we've got one. But
no, I was just wondering if it's already there.
No.
Is there anything that states there's banking?
No.
Is there anything in downtown that says?
We haven't really kept up with that until recently. There was one update.
Because I believe on our gas stations now, there's big red letters, ATM, right? On the outside of those gas stations that point to the ATMs that are inside the gas stations. But there's nothing really telling us that there's an ATM downtown, right?
Right.
On that kiosk? No.
Anywhere?
No.
There's no, okay.
No. So what's your point?
I was just asking if anyone's seen it besides me looking to see if it's anywhere other than where they're asking.
Whether there is one or not, what is your point?
I was just wondering if there was another reference that if there was an ATM in downtown Montgomery. I was just wondering if there was a reference.
So if there
somewhere.
was a reference, you don't think we would need, again, I don't understand where you're going.
If it was there already, then people would have a place of reference that there is an ATM somewhere down in downtown
Somewhere.
Montgomery.
Right, very good.
I'm just wondering if my memory serves me correctly, walking through downtown, if it said ATM or not.
So if it does, or if it does or it doesn't, does it make any difference to you?
No, it doesn't. My mind's not changed.
So
I was just
I don't
wondering,
understand the question.
I was just wondering if there was a sign to make, if there was something saying it
All right, we
already.
got a lot of things on the agenda. Let's move forward on this thing.
I think the big question is, I think it's brought to all our minds, is this being not a building structure, but it's sitting on a piece of property that has a building.
Well, we approved the ATM years ago.
Well, I know. And
So it's there.
And that's hindsight. Because what I'm afraid of is now somebody putting in a red box or something like that. So this is something we opened up a while ago. So I'm just trying to just decipher in my mind is, this is this is a piece of property that somebody else has that already has a building on it. And this isn't a separate, the bank does not own that piece of property. I think that's where everybody's getting hung up at.
I'm not hung up on it.
Well, some of us are.
But whatever, there's an agreement. It's there.
I understand.
I think Dave cleared it up by saying this is a point of, the terminology that he used on this is a point of sale proposed sign. In other words, an on-premise sign. As opposed to an off-premise sign. I think that's what it really comes down to, Bill. And I understand the question. Is it an off-premise sign versus a point of sale on-premise sign? Right, Dave?
Right, again, I don't encourage you guys to deny it based on whether it's an on-premise or off-premise. Again, my sense is it's not an off-premise sign. Again, your view is the historic preservation district, the historic district guidelines. So if you deny it, it should be on the grounds that it's not consistent or does not fit within the historic district.
So the structure's already there. I hate to go back on what I was arguing about, but at this point, I think we could consider it, and we need to learn from this, I guess. That if something else comes in, like this, we do not allow it, or there's sign stipulations before it's put in. That yes, you're allowed to, no, you're not going to be allowed to. This is something we're going to have to learn from.
Right.
They did cut it down, but again,
With respect to the side of it, if the background were not white with red letters that says ATM, is there an aesthetic preference that would make a difference to you guys that I could maybe,
That would help.
Yeah, it just doesn't go with the historic preservation of what the downtown area is supposed, what we're theming it towards. And to me, aesthetically, and with the historic guidelines that we have for our downtown, to me, this does not add to the historic portion of our downtown. That's why I said, no, I don't know what they can do to make it look better.
That would
I'm
help.
just saying that historic-
If Dave could if you could go to them and say, hey, give it like a nice green background, something that's more neutral, I think it's that jumps out at you is what we're all having a problem with.
It's not aesthetically pleasing for, when you walk downtown, we want to make sure that we stay historical, not, I know new things are happening.
Yeah.
It's moving, it's shaking around here. I mean, you see in our agenda tonight. But
Well,
if we do
yeah.
not preserve it,
And let me just say, I kind of missed this the last time
Yeah,
around.
anything's available. You went to
When
the
I took
next
a
slide.
closer look, Miriam, at that, they really did. I'm telling you, that's reduced down to 5.5 inch on the Simmons Bank part. So that's not very big.
they're going to leave it gray. They're not going to paint any other color, right?
Right, they've not mentioned anything at all about the color of the awning itself.
So in the beginning, when the previous commission said yes to this, they just said, yes, you can put an ATM there? Was there any other thing said, like?
Yes, there was discussion about where.
At the current time, when they built it.
You know, what we have existing, and that there was the consensus was, we need one somewhere, we don't have to cross over 105. And, yeah, you know, maybe at the time, that seemed like what they thought was best for the middle of
I think we discussed that what the structure was going to look like. It wouldn't look anything large and bulky. So,
Right. I know, part of this is just a different bank coming in, and we can't control those things to the, it's hard to control exactly when you're talking about a bank logo, I think.
We just have to
Yeah.
be careful for the next bank that takes over Simmons Bank or Texas Bank or whatever it's going to be. Because when we say yes to this, and we've already been proven time and time again, every time we say, okay, we're tired of fighting about it or arguing about it, okay, we're going to give in, then, you know, the next entrance to a driveway is going to be smaller. You know what I mean? So,
Well, I think,
I just
but at the
aesthetically,
same
it's
time,
not
our history
hysterical.
in Bill will confirm this, you know, really, the last many years, we've done well. So we haven't had many complaints about signage. Temporary banners, yes. But I understand, because this is so close to the Cozy Grape, and, you know, I think it's that white background. If you could work with us, work with them on that, Dave, maybe if they could change the background to
I think the background is fine, because
yeah.
you really don't notice. That's the thing, right now, without letters on it, you really don't notice it downtown, because it does work its way into the background.
Yeah.
Maybe with the smaller letters, it still will.
I guess I'm just thinking the sign, the vinyl, whatever they put on that gray beam, if it was, instead of being white, if it was maybe a more neutral, a green or something. Just wouldn't
Or
be
do you
so.
guys like the idea of just a dark background with?
I would say if they leave it gray,
Yeah.
if they leave it gray,
Kind of the background of the
it's
signage.
the same way it is right now. Yes, sir.
Yeah, true, because then it becomes part of the frame.
Right.
Good point. All right. Can we-
So would you guys have two options. You can either table this until you see that come back annexed grade. You can approve it with the stipulation that it is, you know, changed to be gray, and you're fine with the lettering color and the lettering as is.
Yep. Good.
Do y'all want to see it one more time?
Well, if we can stipulate it's going to be a gray, and it's not gray,
Yeah.
then we come back. And Dave, I hope, Dave can make certain of that, stress that, but I'm sure
So you make it mean contingent on that it's good.
being gray.
How about we table it and look at a picture?
Well, I can picture what it's going to be visually.
Yeah.
Visually. I mean,
Because that red background pops out at me right now, and right now it doesn't look historical. So I move that we table it and they show us a picture. I'm not convinced it's gonna be historical looking.
What about all the other signs that are downtown?
Well, we're gonna vote on some tonight.
Well, I'm just saying, do you have a problem with others that have red letters and all kinds of colors?
Or I'm talking about this specific
We're
sign.
talking about historic district. We got a lot of signs with different
You're right.
colors. So why is this any different?
It doesn't.
If they would change the ATM to black like Simon's Bank is, or what's the name of the bank?
Simmons.
If they put that ATM in black, would that suit you?
It might, but it doesn't. I just want to be careful because we're fixing to get a whole bunch more signs.
I know, but
Were they, yeah.
We need to tread lightly. And if
We haven't had a problem with signage for a long time. With approval of signage? No, we denied some signage, yeah. But I'm saying we haven't allowed anything that's.
Okay, well, that's my motion, and if it doesn't get seconded, we need another motion.
what's the motion?
Motion is table it and let us see what it looks like. If they change the colors in the background and work it where maybe it looks more historical.
Can you do that, Dave? Or what?
You say in terms of tabling it, I mean, if you guys are, so there's a motion on the floor to table it, even if it's a second.
Well,
motion
we're going to approve it upon seeing the changes?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second
Can
the
we say
table.
that?
No.
Yeah,
Is that the motion?
that's the motion.
Approval upon seeing the changes.
Yes.
No, so what's the noted changes? Gray background and black ATM?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I'm sorry, you said the motion that Mary made, got it for lack of a second, is that what you said?
No, we are going to table it, and it's contingent on seeing the gray with the black.
I'm going to table it and it's coming back.
Yes.
Yeah, has gray background and black ATM.
So, yeah, in other words, we're not approving anything, we're tabling.
Right.
Yeah.
Before we see it.
Let's just
We're not
make sure it
denying.
fits
Okay.
historical.
We have a motion, and we have a second.
Daniel, second.
Sure. Yeah. I'll second.
Is that right? I don't want to put a second on that.
Oh, I thought Bill and I did it at the same time.
You do?
I'll second it.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Okay, great, good discussion, and we'll get there.
We didn't run anybody off up there.
All right, moving on. Next item, number 3, discussion of renovation plans for 14259 Liberty Street in the Historic Preservation District.
Members of the commission, you got the information in the back. This is the Bronze Hill building, as you well know, and the new owners are here, and they have provided us with a site plan that just kind of shows you the improvement. They have given us some detail there at your spot at the dais. Is kind of just an outline or a summary of the changes along with your future signage. There is no action tonight, but tonight what the commission should do is to look at the plans, discuss with the applicants, and provide some feedback for them moving forward. This will still have to go through the development process along with building permits, but before we ask them to get going on that process, and feedback from the commission would be helpful for them. So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and just give a quick overview, and if you'd like to start going through, or if you guys have questions, then feel free to ask.
Thank you, committee members. I appreciate my being here, and thank you for allowing me to present this. This is my wife, Rebecca. My name is Tony Noriga. Again, just a quick overview of the intention. We purchased this building at 14259 Liberty Street. We acquired it about 6 months ago. Currently, the owners are still residing there with the current business, and that would continue until about June. The intent, once these things are approved, is for us to hopefully get incrementally rolling with renovations and changes, maybe late spring or whenever this is approved. So moving forward, so you have, hopefully I'll follow according to, you have photographs of the,
I'll give you,
because I think I might have it.
on that way you see what they see, and if you'd like to refer to a page number, then if you want to, just use this as a subject, this is what we're looking at here, and they've got that in your,
Oh, so they have copies. Oh,
yeah,
so the first,
that information, and then put this at the table.
okay.
Today's.
Okay, front is correct. So it's numerous changes and renovations that we're hoping, at least we're being optimistic about. Let's start with these, let's see which page I should start with, 10, 15. Okay, so the first page I have here is front of the garage. Hang on, let's see. Here, front of the garage. Here we go. I'll let you continue the order. All right, so front of the garage, you have a schematic of that. Basically, the intent there is to remove the garage doors and continue with the same siding, same type of siding, same materials throughout the face of this building, right, the facade. And instead, we'll have one 36-inch commercial door to the, as you're looking at it, on the left side. The left front. So let's say the left half of the left garage. So as I move along, you tell me questions or move on or explain further.
A commercial entrance door,
Good.
garage door.
Yeah, so currently, okay, so let me back up a little bit. Well, first of all, let me give a little background. I think this is kind of unfair. So my wife and I purchased this building. I intended to open up a new business, and the business was more, it's a triad of businesses, really. An art gallery, an eclectic art gallery, meaning it's going to involve international art, artists and art, mostly originals from all over Europe, Texas, international. An art gallery, a gift store, sort of a unique gift store, hopefully, like what you would see in a hotel or so. That is the intention. And the third entity is a vintage area to coincide with the historic area. So that's the initial intent, just to visualize where we're going here. Okay, so the building currently has a 4-bedroom apartment on the top, and the bottom floor is where the current business is and where our businesses would be too, right? So the top of the garage is currently actually the master bedroom, right? But there's no entrance. The only entrance to this building is the, can't see it, but it's actually in the back of the garage, but the main building. You follow? The back of the garage is the space, and then the main building is an entrance there. So we want to have a second entrance. So, I'm moving on to the second point. So anyway, the front of the garage, the bottom section, we're hoping to have some sort of retail business. So that's why we want to close in there and put a commercial door. Just at the bottom of the garage, just to get a sense of purpose and what we're doing. I need a picture of the side of the steps. So does
So
that...
let me just interrupt for, so your overall idea is no residential, all commercial, all business?
No, on the contrary. Now, upstairs, as I indicated, is a 4-bedroom.
Oh, okay.
Yes, a 4-bedroom.
Go ahead, I'm
apartment.
sorry.
We will
You were gonna
continue to
get there.
have a 3-bedroom apartment, residential. We'll hopefully get renters because the owners will be moving out of it.
Yeah.
So the intent is to rent that. But the master bedroom, which is above the garage, we will turn that into commercial. So that garage building would be commercial.
I see.
Two-story.
Two-story,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will it be separate business on top and on bottom, or
Yes,
a
that's
combination?
why the next step, I don't know where that photograph is, you know, the other side of the garage. Right here. So in pitch, yeah, I don't see that. Yeah. So in page 19, the top photograph is the side of the garage building. And again, the garage is really, it's essentially separated, but there is a walkway from that master bedroom to the main building currently, and that would stay like that. So we putting the intent is to put a side stairway, as you see, where going up to where that window is. That photograph of the window, yeah. So there'll be an entrance to the top of the garage from the outside.
Okay.
And from the bottom, it'll be a separate commercial door entrance. But the rest of it will look same siding we're going to reutilize.
So everything you're going to do here is going to clean that up, the whole building, basically.
Yeah,
The front,
yeah.
the back,
There's a lot
the sides, and everything you're proposing to do is going to stay within the same style
Yes.
as what's there.
Yes, and that's why we're gonna, yes, for sure. And that's why we're gonna break down all these specific entities that we're hoping to address.
Yeah.
So that's two, so we got
And
the
to go along with
garage.
that, let me just add to that, to go along with that, is we appreciate the detail. We don't need a lot of detail
Okay.
tonight, but we want to know the big picture, and, you know, what, these plans look great, you know, you want to, in other words, clean it up. One thing that I thought at first, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is in the historic district, one thing that would really feature is front porches, covered porches with rocking chairs or chair, you know, a sitting area. So that kind of look is what I think a lot of us in our minds, whether it's chairs or, you know, also retail product on the porch. But I'm glad to see you're keeping the front porch and the overhang.
Yes,
And
yes.
that look, because
front will have
I think if you
minimal
go down
changes.
Main Street, where our biggest concern is going to be, what does it look like from the street?
Right.
Or from the side? And, you know, like Bill
Okay.
said.
I think the overall plan is good.
Yeah.
It's going to dress the building up on both sides and the back. And along the front. So I don't, you know, what you have proposed right here, right now, for what we need, just I guess for your peace of mind to go ahead is, I think everything looks fine.
Should I address the
I
next?
do too.
Is this something we vote on or just,
No vote or no action.
Okay.
Really what we wanted to do is just to get this to you so you understood what kind of changes.
And any
and
feedback.
is this the kind of the color scheme you're all going with?
We would like to, I want to make sure, because y'all were addressing earlier about the light,
Later on,
so my
yeah.
wife and I said, we may have, the intent is to use that color scheme, but the lettering, you have a photograph of the lettering too?
You have a photograph of the sign.
The sign, you do have that?
Well, that's neither here nor there right now.
Okay, okay.
I think
The
we
sign's
just-
been there for years.
Yeah, that's-
Like that
Yes.
sign's been there for years.
Let's just concentrate on everything's fine. Yeah, we can work on this
Yes,
when that time comes, comes around before you spend money on having somebody design a sign, this, that, and the other. But what I'm seeing right now looks fine to me. So,
I do have a question. When you build on top,
yes.
okay, so are you going to build on the existing structure to build it out, or is it on how are you building that? Because you're going to take that shed out of there.
Okay,
Is that
yes,
side
shed-
picture's a shed? I just wondered, you're cutting
Yeah.
out, or?
Where the shed is currently, the intent is to remove the shed to new
Yes.
location, right? Just for aesthetics, really. That's the main
Right.
reason for the shed.
But
The build out,
is above the cooler where they have the flowers?
to
no,
the
no.
side, the steps,
Oh,
The
okay.
side, the open side,
where
yeah.
they have their swimming pool.
Okay,
Right.
all right, okay,
That becomes a one-story.
okay.
Yeah, swimming pool.
All right, that's my question. And also too, do you plan on, when you talk about cleaning up, I really appreciate the fact that you are thinking about a fence, you know?
Yes, white
blocking
picket
that off.
fence around.
Yes,
And then on the side of the building is currently a 6-foot fence on the side of the building. We're going to continue with that same pine to the end of the property.
are you gonna keep the driveway on the other side, you know, that little?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And are you gonna build a fence, carry a fence, a short fence through by the driveway, or are you getting rid of that fence? The fence that's in the
Neither.
backyard,
Neither.
by the shed?
Okay, where they drive, the driveway
Yes,
entrance,
yes,
we're going to continue with the fence. There's
Okay.
currently a fence, we'll continue all the way to the end of the property line, at the beginning of the street. Now, we're going to have some additional parking, how do I explain it, as you're driving to the building, to the right, where we're going to install the new fence, continue with the new fence, there will be some parking perpendicular to the fence.
okay. So we're not gonna, where they drive back and forth
Yeah.
beside the flower shop in between Southern Roots, you're gonna turn those into parking spots, or you're gonna be able to drive?
You're talking about the road that goes between the pond and the lake?
No. It's a little bitty driveway that really doesn't exist and doesn't have a name. Here's the property you bought, and then beside it is the black building, Southern Roots. There's a little paved
The hair-
drive.
Yes, good question. No, we aren't going to do anything to that, no changes at all, except one. And apparently, from what I understand from our city owners, I'm not sure, but we are responsible for the damage or any existing or anything that needs to be updated.
Okay.
In the center of that driveway, there is a huge manhole. We will have to take the initiative to repair that with asphalt
Okay.
professionally.
All right.
Yes.
I was just wondering, I mean, what you were going to do for parking. My next question was,
Yeah.
how much parking are you going to have being made available for this shop
Yeah.
that you plan on having? It'll be front and back?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, the existing parking stays,
Yes.
all the existing parking.
Exactly the same.
And possibly a little more.
In the back towards the fence line,
Yes, so
When you-
you can pull in like that?
yes, yes.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay, good
Okay,
point.
good, that's great.
Good. And one more thing, excuse Miriam,
Yeah.
that was a good question. I didn't mean to jump in front of you, but we've talked about this before. I like to see that you've got the walkways enclosed, what do you call it, the
Spa unit.
enclosures and walkways? Because we've had some issues in the past about some walkways, not enough room, but you're looking at that overall. And it looks like it all makes sense where the wood deck with a 9-foot ceiling, that's great, because it's wide open and plenty of room.
Yes, right open on the sides.
And then going down the side with any kind of walkways that you can do with enclosures. And I guess my only concern, when you're getting close to a property line, you just have to make sure everything's okay. And I don't think we have a problem with we've seen.
But everything that you're going to do has to go through city ordinance. and
Yes,
Get
yes.
permits and all that, so we're good with that. My other thing that I always ask everyone, they wait for me to ask it, your trees and shrubbery.
Okay.
What are you doing with the existing
Specifically, yeah.
rocks and
Yeah.
trees that are there? Like, are we
So
going
the
to?
front of the building, we are hoping to add some new plants and new shrubbery to make
Okay,
it hopefully
yeah.
a little more pleasing.
I'm more interested in what you're taking out.
Good point. So there is 2 trees we would like to prune. Actually, we'd like to remove one and prune one, but if that's not feasible, we'll prune both. We would like to prune, there's a huge tree adjacent to the side, and it's really huge. We'd like to prune that, literally prune, not cut down, because it's a pretty tree. It's just that it also blocks a lot of the front of the building. I mean,
And so
yes.
we have, Dave, on our trees, if they are historical or old, or what is the question? Because I've asked about where Mr. Cheatham is going to build a building. I asked about the trees, and you said, well, if the trees have been there, or if they're older or whatever, if they interrupt where you drive, or you have to, they don't have any other way to lay the cement, then the tree can come down. But is there something in our city where if that tree that he's talking about, it can be pruned, but it can't be cut down? I mean, or is he allowed to cut trees down?
There's a requirement for total canopy after development or redevelopment, and it's 20% of the site has to be covered by a tree canopy. The tree ordinance has calculations that describe how much credit you get for a certain type of tree, large, medium, and small. So the standard that we would look at would be the site or the canopy coverage on the site post-development, not necessarily, the trees that are there. There is a definition of a protected tree. None of the trees on that site.
All right.
qualifies that.
So our city ordinance personnel wouldn't have to go and scope this out prior to what they're calling pruning or cutting down trees?
No.
Okay, so they can do whatever they want to with the trees that are there right now currently?
Right.
There is no saving
It's
them?
the standard that we use is post-development and post-development is
All
what
right.
we're looking for. Now, you get
Good.
extra credit, if you will, for an existing tree versus a new tree because the odds of it, living and it's going to be bigger. And so we do try to incentivize folks to keep trees. But there, again, the standard is once the site is finished with improvement.
Okay,
Okay.
that's why I'm asking.
Makes sense.
I'm not a tree hugger, but I like the trees in downtown Montgomery.
Yeah.
They're kind
And
of.
I agree. And
It
most of
leads
them,
to, you don't want everything so cleared out that you just drive down so much buildings.
it won't be.
Okay, yeah.
That good?
Yes, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good.
So I think this gives us enough information. I can circle back with the owners and again, to kind of lay out, more of the details on, here are the next steps for the development of the building permit and all that.
They're gonna put a lot of parking right here.
any ordinances they
Yeah.
need to know about before they,
Yeah,
You know, this is somehow a non-starter for you guys.
Yeah.
Wanted to, kind of find that out, early on, or
Right.
something major that you wanted to see, wanted to find out
Okay.
early on.
all righty.
great, yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, as
Thank
we
you.
said, thank you. We look forward to the whole thing, clean up.
Awesome, thank
And
you.
any extra parking we can get, we need. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. On to item number 4, consideration and possible action on the proposed relocation of the Southern Roots Salon building at 14275 Liberty Street in the Historic Preservation District.
Members of the commission, as you all know, the Southern Roots building owned by the Reed, they're getting ready to move that out of the historic preservation district. Again, just for clarity, not that it needs it, but it is their building. They do lease the site, the ground from the Historical Society. The ordinance does require any exterior modifications, including moving the building, does require the approval of the planning and zoning commission. That's why they're here. And the Reeds are here, if you have any questions.
When you all move it,
Yes.
I mean, is the site going to be clear, clean?
Yes.
All the blocking, existing blocking, everything being taken? Okay, that's one thing I'm concerned about. I know we had a house moved over here on the corner and they left it in
Yeah.
a mess, and it was like that for a couple of years.
And the retention wall? That'll just stay there, right? That,
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, that's part of it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think the terminology we've used before was smooth out the ground possibly, or something.
Well, it's on a concrete slab, I believe. Isn't it on a concrete slab?
Yeah, okay. I guess I mean anywhere around that area, just in case there's pipes sticking up or,
okay, that was my question. Okay,
All right.
perfect.
So I'll make a motion for approval for Southern Roots Building at 14275 Liberty Street. Approval for it to be moved.
second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Best of luck with the
Yeah, we looked at,
new location.
my wife and mother looked at that to lease it, and a long time ago. Right. And they didn't feel comfortable about having the property pulled out from underneath them, so they wanted to do something, so.
You know that feeling?
Yes. All right.
All right, thank you. Item number 5, consideration and possible action on a preliminary plat for Montgomery Bend, Section 1.
Commission, the engineers are here, and can speak to the plat. You have in front of you the folks who are working on the plat, and have the developer also here to fill in any details that you have. And with that, I'll turn it over to
All right. So this is this property, I believe, are we got to? No, we've already sent this one. I was making sure we already discussed this feasibility study with y'all in the next agenda item. So this is the 80-acre Pulte development tract on 1097, just past Terra Vista neighborhood. So this has gone through the development agreement process. They've gone through the annexation process, and they're currently creating a utility district on the site in order to finance the infrastructure. So this is the first of, I believe, 3 sections that will come through. So this accounts for 69 of the 309 proposed lots, and most of some of the detention and the commercial reserves for the recreation center and other green space are included. So if you look at page 25 of your packets, you'll see a copy of the preliminary plat. We have reviewed it, and it meets all the city's preliminary plat requirements. So what this does is they will now take this, assuming it's approved, and then they will proceed with their construction plans based on this layout, and then ultimately the final plat will come back to this commission for approval as well as city council for approval. But as you can go look and see, this is accounts for about 23 and a half of the 80 acres, 69 lots. They're 45 by 120 lots, and that was an agreed upon dimension as part of the development agreement. So that has been approved for those size lots. Everything else on here meets the city's rules, so there's no expected variances or anything yet to come on this property. A couple of things to point out, just as a reminder, is what has been a point of discussion was access. So they have the one boulevard access to 1097, and with the amount of frontage, that's all they can get. There's a council item next Tuesday for sponsorship of that driveway. They are proposing Reserve A. In future phases, that would be an emergency access point.
Is that what you refer to as a stub out?
More of I can't remember the final look, but I think it's more kind of a gravel drive with a gate across it. So in the event that can't utilize the main entrance, it could be open for access.
Is that proposed moving forward, or is it something temporary?
I believe, and I don't have the full plans in front of me, it's only if needed for emergency purposes.
And who is going to prove that it's capable of taking a fire truck and all that stuff? All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So it'll have a gate or whatnot
Correct.
for privacy.
Yeah, right, it's not for everyday use.
Yeah. Yeah, no gated entry. And of course, it is public roads.
Correct.
Is it going to enter like right and left individual lanes, or is it just going to be one opening? You know how some of the subdivisions have a little divider and they name the subdivision?
It's a boulevard.
It is, okay.
So there's a center median,
All right.
in and
Yeah,
out
looks like
lane.
it's got one there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, Chris,
It's faint,
all
it's
you-
real faint, that's what I was saying.
your normal detail, I think you really covered it. We talked about it the first time around. So we appreciate you coming back with this detail. As always, drainage is a big issue, and there is a lot of elevation change there. So I'll just say this one thing, because I know we talked about this before. It looks like you've got probably permission to, on, well, two things. You can, sewer-wise, it looks like you're probably going to be able to tie in down there at Peel Point with gravity fed.
So that's what they're going through now. So the current conversations that are ongoing, as of this afternoon, are the initial plan had to put in a new public lift station to serve 300 homes, which would then kind of pump its way through the city. They believe, based on survey information, they'll be able to serve it by gravity to lift station 14 that's already existing, which will obviously save the city the hassle and the maintenance costs of the lift station. So they're going through that now as we speak to work those out. To your second point on drainage, so you'll see Reserve F that backs up to the existing Terra Vista. That is a drainage detention reserve.
Exactly.
And
Right.
then where it says future development at the kind of southern boundary of the tract, that is also proposed to be detention down there to serve future sections.
Yes.
And so it'll outfall into Atkins Creek, and they've been working with Steve Bowen, who's across his property on obtaining easements and approval to do so.
So, yeah, we've got a lot of width there going down to Atkins Creek, we've got that green belt. Then going the other way, the only other thing we've talked about before, and I'm sure you've looked at this closely by now, so I'm just making sure, but a lot of runoff down to Peel Point, that creek that runs right along Peel Point. The only concern is, I'm sure you've looked at that little bridge that goes over as you're coming into Peel Point. Right there, that little crossover, I mean, actually, right where you're getting where the new homes are going in now, because there's a lot, and I don't mean to be getting into too detailed, but there's a lot of water coming through there.
This is not on the Peel Point side.
Yeah, okay.
So this is
Right,
on,
right.
so we have this neighborhood, Atkins Creek, and then Peninsula Point. So the water subsection 2,
Yes,
the long peninsula. Then you have another canal, water subsection 1, another canal, and then there's Peel Point
yes,
on the actual kind of arm of Town Creek that runs through.
Okay.
So all this drainage will go straight off of their site. It does not go through Terra Vista, and then it goes straight into the Atkins, or
Yes.
into the canal,
Yeah.
also known as Atkins Creek.
Okay.
So there's no,
But the part about where you come in, there's that existing waterway now along that whole stretch where those new homes are going in, a Pill Point. It's a very small, but it seems like where the pond is, where the retention existing pond is now, when we get a big rain, there's a lot coming from that, along that existing swale. And there's a very small culvert that goes under that bridge, where you come into the entrance to Peel, when you take the turn into where the new homes are.
well, in the smaller section?
Yes.
Your point?
Yes.
So that will be, one of the developments that Catherine will talk about is the Summer Wind development, which is
Yeah.
adjacent to that.
Okay.
So none of the drainage from this tract will go through.
Okay. Okay.
Or any of that area. It'll
Right.
be on Atkins Creek.
Eh,
so not
okay,
on the
gotcha.
side of town.
Thank you for that.
So what's the,
So the action is approval of the preliminary plat
what's the name?
for Montgomery Bend Section 1.
Montgomery Bend, is it? Yeah.
Section 1 is 69 homes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
What was that again? Should
Yeah.
be number 5.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for Montgomery Bend, Section 1.
I'll approve it, or I'll second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you. All right. And now we're moving on to more good information that we're going to be getting on future possible development. Item number 6, presentation and discussion of feasibility studies for Old Montgomery Food Gardens, Summer Wind, and Montgomery Ridge proposed developments.
All right, so included in your packet are these 3 feasibility studies. All 3 of these have been presented to council and have been returned to the developer, but as we've been doing after they get presented to council, we like to bring them to planning and zoning as well, so you have an idea of what is headed your way. So the first one is the Food Gardens of Old Montgomery, also sometimes called the Old Montgomery Food Gardens, where you're reading it from. This is a proposed food truck park located pretty much directly across from Lover and across from Jim's Hardware. So going through the report, this is on, I'm looking at page 30 of your packet. This is on about 1.48 acres along FM 149. They, like I mentioned, they're wanting to do a food truck park, so they would construct the food truck pads, the seating area, the canopies, and the parking, and then individual food trucks would come and park in this area. Going through the summary, the city overall has water capacity to serve the development as of today, as well as sanitary sewer capacity to serve the development as of today. As we've mentioned in the past with most of the feasibility studies, and as I'll mention in each of the studies tonight, the city will need additional water and sewer plant capacity to serve all of the developments, both coming and existing in the city at full build out. And so what the city is currently doing is in the budget that began on October 1st, there are design fees for a water plant expansion and sanitary sewer plant expansion. So the city is currently planning ahead and is prepared to proceed with the design of these new facilities. So that's going to be kind of a recurring theme throughout all 3 of these feasibility studies, and some of this information will stay the same as well.
Yeah, that's going to be my question.
Yeah.
That was going to be my question. I know you're saying it's a capability today. What happens, I think you said capable today, then 2 or 3 years down the road that it needs to be looked at. What happens if everything lines up and everything is done at once? Do we still have that capability?
So with a lot of these developments, it's single family, and so we have the benefit of the build out period
Okay.
coming in. And so with single family, not 200, 300 homes don't come online
Right.
the same day.
Right.
And so we're able to plan ahead, we're able to look at build out schedules and phasing.
Okay, so you all foresee us staying ahead of the ballgame then?
Correct. And
Okay.
when we build our projections, the goal is to be conservative. So, build or quicker build-outs than necessarily expected. Higher total usages than necessarily expected. Obviously with, the real estate market and mortgage rates today, that has a drastic effect on home sales. So, the trend line, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, was a whole lot steeper today. So, a lot of these new developments and lots that the capital go through are a lot more homes adding. First lots with, the Redbird Meadows development, with the Pulte tract that we just talked about, with these others. First lots we're looking to deliver 2024. So when we first start seeing homes show up, based on the timeline today.
Okay. I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I think we all keep seeing this, the first quarter, 2024, the first quarter hitting a certain percentage, and I think, you start to think, well, in a way, it looks like we're starting to cut it close, but as you say, you've got some padding in there too.
Absolutely, yeah, so.
Some of these projects take, of course, infrastructure, water and sewer especially, take a lot of time to, used to get to stay ahead of it too.
So what you're seeing on the feasibility study for the old Montgomery food garden, all that is well within your findings or your studies so far?
Correct.
For them to go ahead and start looking into everything for the capital, for the money for the feasibility studies. Okay.
Correct. Correct.
They've done a real good job on designing that out. If everything works out drainage wise and everything else. So.
Exactly.
Right. One thing that they will be responsible for are impact fees. So those are summarized here. They'll pay about $9,700 in impact fees when it's all said and done. They're expecting to have a valuation of $800,000 at full build out. And so that would bring about $3,200 in tax revenue to the city
Per year. That's pretty good.
So it's an annual, that's a recurring expense that will come every single year with the taxes.
And then on that also, how much of it is in the historical district?
There's a small portion of the site now, of the very southern part of the site, I think it's, call it, a quarter of.
On the southern, okay.
Yes, on the southern, portion of it there, so, again, architectural, styling and things like that will come before the commission.
And part of it's in residential and part of it's in commercial, okay.
Yeah.
So this is, as we're saying, this is zoned partially commercial, partially residential, and a portion in historic district, so they would need to be rezoned and to be fully commercial, and then they'll follow the historic district requirements.
Okay.
And when does that come along? When does that come before us to be rezoned?
So rezoning is usually one of the earlier things to happen. It's one of the first things to get it out of the way, because everything really hinges on the zone. You're in your building lines, any kind of setback requirements, that all hinges on your zone. So we can really get that out of the way first, and everything builds.
So, yeah, that's a good question we have to look at, because on the map, it does show 3 properties that actually abut that, private properties, and there's a 4th one that's really close on the corner. So when we're talking about a variance on setback, on green space, that's something I know there'll be a public notice and that type of thing.
And as the developer sent a request for variances, so that'll be likely your January meeting.
Okay.
Those variances will come to you for setbacks, building lines.
Exactly.
Something else.
And also, well, probably Catherine, since you were talking about, if you could just educate us just briefly on water and sewer, private versus public. It looks to me like, on this project, you're going private on both the storm sewer and the detention ponds. And my assumption is when we do a project like some of the other ones, where you've got curb and gutter and all, then it's public.
Correct.
But I noticed this one's private, both on the pond, on the detention ponds and sewer.
So that's really in line with most of our commercial developments.
Yeah.
On our commercial side, all the storm sewer on site remains private and the detention ponds remain private.
Right.
When you get into your single family residential, that's when the storm sewer becomes public in, I would say, most cases. detention ponds always remain the responsibility of the developer or the HOA in the case of a single-family neighborhood. That's really where that line is drawn, is commercial or residential.
Okay, yeah, because that's a good point that we, always got to make sure who's maintaining what.
Right, absolutely. Going back to the water production, there's an existing 12-inch water line along FM 149, so there is water directly available to the track that they can connect to.
And the developer would be responsible for the utility line along 149.
It's already
A
existing.
utility easement, I'm sorry.
Yes, they would need to dedicate an easement along 149, that would be part of, it would be really right along their building line as well, so. But there's already existing water and sewer along 149 they can tie into. They will be flowing to lift station number 2, is where that gravity line ends up at lift station 2. This is another facility that will be reaching its capacity with future developments. Just like the sewer plant, there's capacity today, but that is also on the city's radar to be expanded with any kind of sewer plant improvements, and design fees are already in the budget. So that is something that the city is closely looking at. As far as when capacity will be reached in the sewer plant, so the TCEQ has a requirement that once you reach 75% of your permitted flow, you begin engineering and financial planning. We're not expecting this to happen until the first quarter of 2024. And then their next requirement is once you hit 90% of your flow for 3 consecutive months, you have to begin construction. And we're not expecting to hit that flow until the third quarter of 2024. Again, these are all very conservative timelines, trying to stay ahead of the 8 ball that we just discussed. Going on to, we talked about drainage, everything will be private. On the paving and traffic, they currently have 2 proposed driveways onto FF 149. A reminder, this is a TxDOT highway, so they will be responsible for obtaining TxDOT approval. The southern driveway, on their site plan, it shows a roundabout. As of today, if they were to construct it today, they'll tie directly into 149, but it will be constructed in such a way that when the roundabout comes in at that location, they'll still be able to tie in easily.
Yeah, anything you can educate us on that as we move forward, because I just got to be honest, my gut feeling was I don't understand, any roundabout that I've ever seen is an intersection of 2 major streets crossing, so I still don't understand why they're talking about a roundabout, and maybe it makes sense, but we just need to make sure we get an explanation. I mean, I don't know if it's just somebody's idea or if it's actually TxDOT saying it, but I've never seen it.
So it first came up as part of the downtown master plan, if you will, that the city did a couple of years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And something that TxDOT is aware of, and I think you might be able to speak more to this, but I know TxDOT is looking into potential funding options for that roundabout at 149.
The idea being to slow traffic down.
Correct. So it slows traffic down coming into the downtown area, especially coming from the north side around the curve. You hit the roundabout, it slows you down and
Yeah.
helps traffic and then slow it down the area.
Just that the cross streets being College and Klepper, to me, I've never seen a roundabout in that situation. As the ones that they do everywhere else seem to be 2 major streets.
Right, and I know the master plan, the thought was that the roundabout would be more of like a welcome monument, welcome to downtown historic Montgomery,
Yeah.
that style.
Okay. Well, the other thing that might help us is, I'm not sure, Dave, if you know when this ordinance was set, but why is it, we're looking at 35-foot setbacks on this property from a major road, but as you go through downtown, everything is right on the road. I guess it goes back to the old days. Was there something that happened? We came up with, I mean, that hasn't changed. Yeah, as Bill said, we had horses and wagons, but I guess it's because of some years ago the ordinance must have been updated. Now we're saying 35-foot setback from any major road.
So while the 35-foot setback is normal everywhere else in the city, it has been for a number of years.
Yeah.
One of the things that's different in the downtown is when you're adjacent, and it doesn't really come into play when we look at this property and the type of structures they're looking at, But say if you're looking just south of there, where the downtown, kind of the core, piece of downtown in 149 is, if someone were to build a new structure there, one of the requirements is that you match the building adjacent to whichever one's closer to the street, with the idea that you get this architectural massing on the street and you don't end up with a bunch of buildings with varying setbacks. Kind of the intent at the time when the city changed that for the downtown area, it was again to try and kind of create that streetscape, if you will, in a commercial corridor. So that's the only place in the city that again would be held to a different, front setback. This property, that notion really doesn't apply. Again, there is the in stitches drapery, but with the curve in the road and the setback from that the in stitches building has. Matching that isn't really.
Yeah, and that's why I asked, because I've noticed the cars they're really coming at a pretty good clip, and that's where they're slowing down, is that first curve. So when we get to that variance, my concern is going to be safety on where they want to put their tables and their canopies. It's quite close, much closer to the road than the setback. And it's different across the street at Jim's Hardware. You've got just a parking lot set up really high with a lot of swale and curb, and you don't have a problem with a car coming off the road there. But you would have that problem where they hit the brakes coming into that curve, where if we give a variance on the distance to the street, that's could be a safety issue. So we'll talk more about that, I'm sure. And maybe there's something that can give us a little more confidence on that. But I think the variances, both front and back, are going to we're going to look at it, because it's private property in the back, and the drainage onto other people's property, and typically we don't give much variance on the width of a green belt to private property. So I'll just say that, and then as we get to it, on whether it's a roundabout or not, I think the big issue is going to be a crosswalk. How do we do the crosswalk? Because right now there is no true sidewalk there on the stitchery place on that side. It's kind of a shoulder, but so if you're going to cross from downtown, which we're trying to make everything walkable, that's going to be a really important, could be a big improvement for walkability, but how do we do it? Because if we open for business over there, a lot of people are going to be walking from town into over to there. It's a great, exciting looking idea. I love the idea, but it's got to be walkable and safety.
So those are all things that we can look at once we start really getting into design and seeing plans and anything like that. Right now, we just saw the variance request yesterday. So definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're here. Just kind of, I think those would be the issues we look at.
Definitely. So we talked about the applicable ordinances being the zoning, the historic district, and their variance request for their building line. As far as development costs go, and to go over on page 35 of the packet, they're expecting to only need one 1-inch water meter. They would be responsible for impact fees, as I mentioned, about $9,700. So their development cost would be $14,712. That includes their funding their escrow account for the remainder of the development process. And then just to reiterate, they bring about $3,200 in property taxes to the city per year. And do y'all have any other questions on this one before I move on to the next? Okay. The next one that I would like to go over with y'all starts on page 44 of your packets. This is the summer wind feasibility study. So this development is 211 single-family homes along Lone Star Parkway, just east of Buffalo Springs Drive. So Lone Star Parkway goes all the way up into the main arm of Town Creek, on the other end of where we were just discussing earlier. So starting with the summary on page 46 of your packet, this is 56.7 acres along Lone Star Parkway. This is also known as MUD 179. So this is a municipal utility district located within the city limits. Again, number 179. The MUD is not planning on providing its own water or wastewater, so they'll be receiving those services from the city.
Unknown store.
Capacity considerations are the same as the previous study, just looking into expanding both the water and sanitary sewer plants moving forward. This development will drain to, the sewer will flow to lift station number 10. And so that lift station will need some additional capacity to serve all of the existing and proposed developments that are headed to it. So this one was first, lift station 10 expansion was first brought up during the feasibility study for the Montgomery tract. And so the cost that we've included in here, that $379,000 that you see, there is an opportunity for cost sharing with Pulte Homes. That would be resorted off to the entities as far as who and how to share the cost. They are estimating their total valuation to be $82,875,000 in all build out, which will bring $331,500 to the city in annual tax revenue.
How long does that tax revenue last? How, is it forever, for
It's in
20 years?
perpetuity. As long as the city is assessing property taxes, then we'll be receiving this
All right.
tax revenue.
And it's obviously estimated at the current tax rate. So, and we also, in our, when we do single family, since the city offers the homestead exemption, we knock off like 70% of the homes that we assume they're going to get the homestead and a 99% collection rate to come up with that.
As I mentioned, they are proposing 211 lots. They are proposing them 45 feet wide, so keep in mind that will be a future variance request coming your way as well. This tract is currently zoned as planned development. This is part of Mr. Lefebvre's planned development agreement, and so there are certain ordinances that they are allowed to follow as part of the agreement. As far as water is concerned, they're expecting to use an estimated flow of 79,560 gallons per day. This was taken into consideration when we looked at the plant capacities for the food gardens and Montgomery feasibility study. When we get feasibility studies, especially multiple at the same time, we include all of them in our projections, that we're getting a very accurate estimate of plant capacities and the projected need. There is an existing 8-inch water line that stubs supported the track along Lone Star Parkway. There's a 12-inch water line on the south side of Lone Star Parkway, and then an 8-inch stub was constructed to cross Lone Star that they can tie into. We're also recommending that they tie into the 8-inch water line along Field Point Drive. This is the Buffalo Crossing development. It stubs out at the end of Field Point, and so we would like them to tie into that to provide a loop water system through the development. All of the water lines, once this development is completed, will be dedicated to the public, so they will either be located in right-of-way or utility easements. And that'll be the same situation with sanitary, all in right-of-way or utility easements. Getting into the sanitary sewer, there's an existing manhole at the end of Peel Point Drive that we are recommending that they tie into. We did do some preliminary evaluation of elevations as part of this study, and based on our evaluation, they would be able to go to this manhole via gravity, so they would not need an additional lift station. One thing that we wanted to be sure to say in the study is that the developer is responsible for verifying those elevations. We did not conduct a topographic survey. We just used LiDAR and the information that was available to us. So based on their survey, that may change. That is their responsibility to verify. Going for the lift station number 10 improvements, the lift station will need to be upsized from approximately 350 gallons per minute to 550 GPM. Again, this was mentioned during the Pulte Montgomery tract feasibility study, and there's options for cost sharing between the two. Their on-site storm sewer will be designated public, as we were just talking the delineation between the two, but any detention ponds that they have will remain the responsibility of the developer. As far as heating and traffic, the streets will all be proposed public and accessed by the city upon completion, just like the vast majority of the single-family developments in the city. There is currently one access point along Lone Star Parkway for the subdivision. And looking at the thoroughfare plan, there are no conflicts with their current proposed plan. We're also requesting that they put a stub-out street along the western boundary of the development for connection to a future development on the hard corner of Buffalo Springs and Lone Star Parkway to go through there. One unique thing about this development is that since it's part of the planned development district, they will not be paying water and wastewater impact fees to the city. Their tap fees will be assessed at a cost plus 200%. And so again, they bring about $331,000
Okay.
revenue to the city.
Excuse me, I just wanted to apologize to Catherine and Chris. I was looking at my notes, I had mixed up Montgomery Bend with Summer Wind. So that's where I was a little confused earlier, but now you hit the point I was getting at.
Montgomery Bend, Montgomery Bridge.
Yeah, I know. I got these handwritten notes and I'm kind of out of order, but, so you hit on the point. So that, what I was concerned about was where you're talking about now. We have two things. The sewer, we may end up doing a shared with Mabry on that sewer, okay? And but this is where I was concerned about the drainage on storm drainage coming down through Peel Point. And I think you know what I'm talking about. It's just, I know you've looked at it, it's just, I know there's a lot of water coming down to Peel Point along that little canal that's existing, okay, just down from the existing pond. And so it eventually goes to that little, where you drive into Peel Point, there's that little bridge. And it's not much of a cul-de-sac, or culvert. So, I mean, I'm sure you're looking at it, but
Yeah, so part of the development, they'll be required to submit a drainage study.
Yeah.
That shows no impact leaving the development. So their post-development flow cannot be greater than their pre-development flow.
right,
So
okay.
they'll need to account for that as part of their detention or drainage plans.
Thank you. And I apologize for the confusion earlier.
Not a problem at all, not a problem at all.
All right.
So that really is what I had for the summer wind feasibility study. I know I went through that a little bit quickly, but again, a lot of the information stayed the same from the Food Gardens study.
And the only thing that I would add is that if you, on page 54, you'll see a copy of the land plan, their current proposed one. So right now they go through the confirmation process for their utility district, and I expect to start seeing some of them on plans here shortly. They have announced the builder that was previously, and the developer mentioned this when this read to council, and David Wheaton Phelps is the proposed builder. Or at least one of the, there might be multiple builders, but one of the builders.
It's really nice that they're not getting anywhere close to that canal, and there's a lot of green space there now with that park they're going to put in. And apparently the amenities will be significant.
Yeah, I think they're intending that would be a walking area, or especially for detention.
Yeah, right.
Any
Looks
other
good.
questions on this one?
Good?
Good?
Yep, good.
Thank you.
Okay. The last feasibility study that I have is on page 61 of your packets. So this is the Meadow Ridge feasibility study. And going to page 63 of your packets, starting on the summary, this is a 28-acre single-family development along the Lone Star Parkway, almost just across from the community center, just west of the sand pit. So, again, at 28 acres, a majority of the tract is within the current city limits, but about 8¼ acres lies outside of the city limits, but within your ETJ. So they'll need to go through the annexation and zoning process to get that last 8.25 acres zoned, or annexed and then zoned R1 residential. The remainder of the property is currently R1 residential, so we would not need a total rezoning.
That's what happens to see.
They're currently proposing 80, as of the time of the feasibility study, they were proposing 81 75-foot single-family lots. The latest correspondence we've seen is that they're looking to potentially take those down to 60-foot lots. So we may see a few more than 81.
What's that now?
Say it, what? What? That was quick. What'd you say?
When the feasibility study was performed, They were looking at doing 81 lots at a 75-foot width.
Okay.
They've since come back, we've had a couple of meetings with them, and they've come back and they're looking at potentially doing 60-foot wide lots instead of 75 feet.
Okay.
Well, preliminary, so
Yeah.
they're going back and forth with builders and pricing and things like that.
And I don't know, we all want to look at this as a group, and I'll just say, you know, we've done a lot of these 45, 55, 45s, which are working fine. But we've always said, the end result, the long term, is to have a mix of both. And we, just so we all have something to compare to, down at Creekside, you know, that the newest one off a racetrack there, that those are all 75s, and that gives us a good comparison. I think that turned out to be a pretty good balance. We've got the smaller, and then we've got the 75s. You know, personally, I'm a little disappointed to hear it go from, because we were looking forward to getting some more 75s, because we've had so many small ones.
Right, and again, those, with the developer said that it's an idea that they're exploring,
Yeah.
not a definitive decision
Yeah.
by any means.
Yeah.
So they're still looking into the final land plan, which is to be expected at
Sure.
this point. They
So
need-
is there a developer name? I mean, is there who is the
The
developer?
developer is Morning Cloud Investments. The individual is Marjorie Cox.
Now, the park is quite small, half acre. The pond is quite large at 3.5 acres. Would that be a detention?
Yes,
detention pond?
that would be their detention, is that 3.5 acre pond.
So how are we doing as far as green space overall with that equation? Because I guess we count the pond just as much as because the park's pretty small.
Right,
That'll be
so,
one of the things that they have to, you know, kind of prove up, if you will, is that, you know, when you get smaller than a 9,000 square foot lot, it's a 1-to-1 square foot compensated green space.
Right.
The pond would count toward that, but they've got to ultimately show that for every square foot under 9,000, that they've added a square foot, you know, green space somewhere within the subdivision.
Right. Okay.
going through the fees that they would owe, we have estimated deposit of $47,500 for their escrow account. Water and wastewater impact fees for the 81 homes, they're looking at almost $295,000 in impact fees. And then they have some offset utility improvements that I'll get to in just a second. Their total assessed valuation is estimated at $36 million of full build out. So based on today's rates, again, assuming 95% collection and a homestead exemption on about 75% of the properties, that would be about $116,000 in property tax revenue annually.
So, let me ask you one question on that. I just wasn't sure what depth, you know, we've been listing the tax revenue, but what is the definition of the debt service? Like for the food park, it was $840, I think, but I'm not sure what that is. The debt service?
Right, so there's two types of property taxes that the city is allowed to levy. There's an operation and maintenance tax and then a debt service tax, and the difference comes in how they can be used. So the operations and maintenance tax can be used for kind of your general purpose, it can be applied to most portions of your budget. The debt service portion is only allowed to be applied towards paying off debt.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that was per month, that whatever that figure was that they showed.
So in the food gardens, that 840
Yeah.
in debt service, that was annual.
Oh, okay. All right.
Annual,
It's not-
so that's all part of the property taxes that are paid to the appraisal district and then come back to the city.
Okay, I see now. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's just the two parts that make up the 40 cents. So it's one tax bill for 40
Yes.
cents, but then what is how the city accounts for it and how it's behind behind the books.
Yeah.
Split is that debt.
So that's the breakdown of it, yeah. Thank you.
Going on to the water system analysis, there's an existing 12-inch water line along Lone Star Parkway that currently stubs east of the property right in front of the community center. One thing that they'll be required to do is extend that 12-inch water line along Lone Star Parkway all the way to the western boundary of their property. This is a project that the city has had on their capital improvement plan, and we would like the city to consider closing that loop all the way down to is way you're looking into it in the future to get a true closed loop all the way along the Star Parkway. So this development will bring that water line a good chunk of the loop, and then there would be a lesser portion for the city to close, or a potential future developer.
Yes, it was good to see that. You talked about putting it deep enough in certain areas and things that nature for future.
Right. So it's similar would be on the sewer. There is an existing, so there's not, excuse me, I'm sorry. On the sanitary side, they would need to construct a new public lift station on this site. We evaluated a couple of different options. We looked at extending the gravity line to this area, but they would need to cross Town Creek, and elevations just don't make sense for a gravity line. We also looked at sending flow to lift station number 7 in front of the community center, and lift station 7 doesn't currently have capacity, and again, we've got some potential elevation issues with Town Creek. So what we landed on is they'll need a new public lift station to be constructed on their site, and then the force main will be taken east. There's an existing manhole at the corner of FM 149 and Lone Star Parkway that they would tie into. That lift station would be, the wet well would be sized to handle future development in the area, so that as other properties develop, they can continue to tie into this lift station, and it really serves as a regional facility, not just for this development alone. When they first go in, the pumps would be sized just for this development, so that pumps aren't oversized, but the wet well would be sized big enough and deep enough to be truly a regional lift station. Going on in, we talked about the different options that we evaluated. This ultimately will flow to lift station number 2, and just mentioning again the need to expand lift station 2, which the city is already planning to do. Getting into drainage, the on-site storm sewer will also be designated public, just like in summer wind, and then any detention ponds will be the responsibility of the developer. And they will also be required to do a drainage study that ultimately shows no impact downstream. As far as paving and traffic, the streets will all be dedicated to the public. They currently have 2 access points along Lone Star Parkway, and they will be responsible for obtaining Montgomery County approval for both access points on Lone Star Parkway. Looking at the thoroughfare plan, there is a proposed road that runs east and west along the southern portion of the property. Kind of looking at the long-term development of this area, looking and kind of in conjunction with their land plan, that road would not really be feasible. And so we're recommending the developer step out streets to the west, south, and east of the property for a future connection, but not dedicate a full 60-foot right-of-way for that street through the tracks. And then we've got a summary of their development costs on that last page as well, and again, $116,000 and change in annual property tax revenue for this development.
And if they do go to from 75 to 60s, I guess the end result will be more lots, correct?
Right, it would be more lots, it would not be enough more to warrant redoing a feasibility study. Really nothing
Yeah.
material would change if they were to go from 75s to 60s. Essentially, the result would be the same.
Okay. And we can assume that,
20 lots difference.
yeah, okay.
And, once they start adding the green space and you take out, some of the potential stub streets to the neighboring properties, and it might be 10 lots difference if that's where they go.
And if they go that route, I guess, just the boundaries change a little bit on maybe the setback and what about the distance between homes? It's not going to change much?
They haven't gotten that far, so, we're at the 45-foot lots, we definitely need to get the variance for the side yard setback as well.
Right.
With 60s, it kind of depends on the builder, and what footprint they're needing on those houses. If they can work within still, effectively a 40-foot building width with a 10-foot side yard, or they need to try to reduce those. So that's to be determined.
Yeah, sure, okay. Yeah. We know it's always going to be 10 foot or more, though, between.
Right. Yeah, it's either, 10 is what's in the ordinance, it's 10 foot on each side of the property line, and then the variances that are typically asked for reduces that from 10 to 5. So you still have 10 feet between the homes,
Right.
20 foot in your ordinance about variances.
Yeah, it looks like you're staying ahead, but I appreciate that. I mean, even on lift stations and things like that, you may have to go eventually to a bigger capacity pump or whatever.
Right, so as other developments or as other properties in this area are developed, it's something we continue to look at as time goes on, is when is it time to upsize the pumps in this larger regional lift station to really get into its good working capacity.
We know eventually there'll be something probably there out that way. The west part of town, maybe a water tower eventually. That's future. All right. Any questions? I think you all covered it well. Appreciate your
Thank you.
detail. So we just need a motion. Oh, let me, before we adjourn, does anybody have anything under commission inquiry? I'd like to just say to both staff and engineering, I know we really appreciate the agenda report, the packet that you send us before the meetings. And particularly, I'd like to say thank you to Dave, Chris, and Catherine, because you always stayed on there after we read through it before the meeting. If we have any questions or comments, to please contact them prior to the meeting. And I just want to mention that does help. Not that we have to do it that often, but it's all about good communication. And if one of us has something we're not clear about, this really helps. So appreciate you always being there if we need to clarify something. For the most, because to have efficient, good communication is probably the biggest challenge when you're talking about this many people and city council and different groups. So anything we can do for good, efficient communication really helps. And appreciate you, the staff and what they do. Appreciate it. As we look forward to a new year.
Yep.
All right. So, now, thank you all for coming.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. 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 Meeting adjourned.
All right.
Ooh, that's a lot of stuff coming.
Where are you headed?